And it's been a long weekend for many people. Been tracking Erin all weekend here on Fox Weather. And what a storm it has been. The first of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season making its mark, Britta.
Yeah, and Erin's impacts are going to start to slam the Turks and Caicos later today. Tropical storm conditions anticipated. And this is after just wild winds whipped Puerto Rico and the DR this past weekend. So let's take a look at Erin's current conditions, what we are expecting over the next several hours with the big picture. So here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Winds are at 130 miles per hour. So this is an extremely powerful Category 4 hurricane. It's gone under a eye wall replacement cycle in the overnight hours. That does really strengthen the structure. And sometimes this could lead to an uptick or re-intensification of the hurricane as we go throughout the next 24 hours. Right now, Turks and Caicos definitely feeling the outer rain bands of this hurricane. But we even still have the trail effect right over Puerto Rico. I mean, they took it on the chin all weekend long, and we still have the impacts being felt this morning.
Yeah, that southerly flow, we talked about this, how it would move to the north, and then the winds would switch direction, and you're banking up against those mountains in Puerto Rico, 4,000 feet or so, Britta. Massive storm. It starts to really, you can see it starting to expand, if you will, which is expected, right?
Yes.
The storm is going to start to expand. Look at the center of the storm there, and then you can see the outer bands just really filling in, but you can kind of see it's starting to fill in right in the circle there. You can see a bit of an eye, and then it starts to fill in. That's what you're seeing with the fluctuation, with the intensity, with the eye wall replacement cycle it's been undergoing at times.
Yes, as we continue to evolve and move forward, this is going to be a big part of this, the expanding wind field. So right now, just looking at the cloud tops, measuring from, you know, the western side of this to the eastern side, we're over 450 miles.
Man.
As we work our way through this week, the wind field and the growth of that wind field is going to be an important player for folks that live on the east coast of the U.S. Here's the latest from the overnight advisory compared to the 5 a.m. advisory. Again, not a lot of change here. As we wake up to the next advisory, which will be coming up around 8 a.m. Eastern time, it'll be interesting to note the pressure and the wind, because I do anticipate that we'll see some uptick as we work our way through the next 24 hours.
So important. A lot of people want to see the cone, right? And here it is, the latest one from the National Hurricane Center, still moving off to the north and then eventually taking a northeasterly track, and that's all being by the steering mechanisms. But you'll notice it's going to remain pretty powerful, pretty strong. And with the expanding winds, Britta, we'll break this down in just a moment. The effects are going to be felt along the U.S. coast.
Yeah, this is really best case scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get away from the fact that this is a monster hurricane. So to have it laced between the East Coast and Bermuda is the best case in this type of a setup. But with that said, to Craig's point, we're going to feel impacts for Bermuda, and we're going to feel some impacts for the U.S. Here's the earliest onset for tropical storm force winds. Important to note, Turks and Caicos, Southeast Bahamas feeling tropical storm conditions today, despite the fact that this is a Cat 4. So again, it really depends on where you live, what you are going to feel. But Bermuda is going to start to feel the winds increase by Wednesday morning, as well as the Outer Banks.
Tuesday morning, the energy is coming along the Bahamas, the North Florida, and up along the southeast coast, just getting there in terms of the southeast coast Tuesday morning. But noticeably, you'll notice it in very strong rip currents.
Yeah, that is important to think about. That is Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross warning of the dangerous rip currents, the big surf, all of it whipping up and down the eastern seaboard in the days ahead. Now, folks along the East Coast need to stay alert. Erin's influence becomes a little more apparent as we go through the week. We want to talk about what you can expect, because it is all about the coastal impact. So no direct landfall to the United States, which is a good news when you think about this monster storm. The indirect impacts, if you will be the larger surf, the longer swells. And the swells are going to be a big part of this, Britta. The longer the swell and the more time it takes to get to the coast, the more seconds between those, 12 seconds, even longer, there's more energy in those waves, which is going to cause potentially beach erosion, especially at high tide. You could be dealing with some flooding.
And some of these roads that are right next to the beach, which is part of the reason why we have mandatory evacuations for the Outer Banks, you're going to have washover, and you are going to have a significant amount of sand and water going over these small roads that will take a hit infrastructure-wise. You know, this is the pull to the north. Again, best case scenario, if you're going to have a major hurricane, you do not want it hitting Bermuda and you don't want it hitting the U.S., but you're going to have the impacts here. Now, over the next 24 hours, we're likely to see some intensification, lower wind shear, really juiced water temps. I mean, we're in the upper 80s underneath Erin right now. So that could get our winds up to maybe about 145. That's the peak that the winds are marked for the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. But eventually, it starts to move into our favor. Look at that temperature drop off.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to get into the 70s north of Virginia, and also we'll have some building wind shear at that point. But unfortunately, how things go as you move a powerful hurricane north in latitude, the wind field gets huge.
Yeah, take a look at this. Here's a perfect example of that wind field, Britta, we're talking about. So 40-plus mile gusts extend 400 miles from across the storm, right? This is today. Watch what happens as it moves to the north. The wind field expands, and yeah, massive.
Happens every time. And look at the eye wall feature of this, right? I mean, you're talking about maybe 200 miles off of the coast of North Carolina, and the eye just pops out. With water temperatures in the upper 80s, again, this is going to be a powerful storm that is offshore, and we're going to have tropical storm winds across the Outer Banks. On top of that, we're going to have some really powerful wave energy. Even for folks that live into the Northeast, we'll get to you guys in just a moment. When you have a Category 5, even when this starts to lower in intensity, down to a Cat 2, the energy that's put into the ocean is still there. The integrity of that swell is still there, and it makes a huge difference. There's a difference between a Cat 5 that goes down to a Cat 2 and just a Cat 2 in itself.
Wave heights are already up, and to your point, Britta, as we go through the week, it's going to take some time for that energy, but it's going to be wave after wave. Here's a look at the height real quick as we go through the rest of the week. Pretty impressive when you look at those. Of course, the higher waves closer to the center, but it is going to affect the entire eastern
For the
seaboard.
entire week.
For the entire week. Good point.
The whole
It's
week from Florida to Maine is not going to happen beach condition wise. I mean, you can go out and take a look at these waves, but definitely respect them and give them plenty of room. So let's move this storm a little bit farther to the north. We're talking mid to end of the week. Live look at Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and Atlantic City, New Jersey. Folks, you guys are about to get a huge wave show. Please be very, very careful. This summer season has been dangerous for beaches up and down the northeast coastline to the mid-Atlantic. We've lost a lot of people in rip currents. We've had reports of crazy rescues happening. This is going to make that look like child's play, to be quite honest. You are talking about lifting a Cat 4, eventually probably going to a Cat 2 by the time it passes New England, up and down the East Coast. I mean, these waves are going to be monstrous.
It's important to note that a lot of the beaches have hours, but in this situation, those hours may adjust. You know, especially the Jersey Shore, any of the beaches, really. So pay attention to the lifeguards, see what they have to say. When you take a look at the models, and they're in pretty good agreement, they have it all in one cluster, and the steering mechanisms, which we talked about, take it out and away. But it's that wave energy that still has the effects. And having said that, you think about even the most experienced swimmer would have a tough time in this type of situation.
Oh, it's just a no-go.
Dangerous.
I mean, I think there's going to be surfers that just decide I'm going to sit on the sand and watch it instead of actually getting in. This is a very, very powerful storm. There's the timeline up and down the East Coast as we focus on the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. It is mid to end of the week. Here's a look at those wave heights. We're expecting waves off of Virginia to climb to 9 feet by the time we get to Wednesday evening. Here's the bulk of it as the storm actually lifts up to the north. This is Thursday. We have winds off of the coast of Delaware, or pardon me, waves that are reaching above 10 feet. So, you know, when you're talking about the distance here, you have a massive hurricane that's only like 150 to 200 miles off the shoreline, and the Jersey Shore is going to be rocking 9 to 12 foot wave heights. I mean, these are going to be huge breakers that are out there. When do we see improvements? Well, even this upcoming weekend, we still have some waves that are coming in, sets maybe 3 to 6. But the rip current risk and the beach erosion,
for sure.
I mean, come this weekend, there's going to be damage that's left behind at the beaches that we're going to have to deal with. Here's a look wind-wise. We're expecting tropical storm force wind gusts for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So again, not sustained winds, but to have a wind gust above 40, 50 miles per hour will not be a shocker, and it can happen, especially on some of these exposed areas like the East Forks of Long Island. Here's a look at Atlantic City's forecast. Windy. This is directly tied to what's going to be happening with Erin. You'll notice that. You'll also notice the temperatures are going to be down this week. We're looking at 70s in comparison to the 80s and 90s that we have had.
Much
this
more
is a strong north wind. Absolutely.